Welcome to Bridgewalkers Tea. Grab your tea, pull up a chair, and join us in these conversations around practical spirituality, systemic change, and solopreneurship. I'm Manasi Kakade, a practical spirituality mentor and speaker for Bridgewalkers.
I'm Marcia Bernstein, a house whisperer and lifelong traveler on the wisdom path of Mothership India.
A Bridgewalker is an analytical, critical thinker fascinated by spirituality.
According to human design, both of us are line 1-3 profiles. What this means is that we investigate and experiment a lot, and we share with others what works and what doesn't, and what is worth struggling for. We would love for you to join the conversation too, so don't hesitate to submit your comments or questions via the form. The link is in the description. If you are enjoying this experience, please take some time to review us and subscribe. That will help us to reach more Bridgewalkers.
We hope that these candid, unfiltered conversations bring you new perspectives, spark an inspiration, and give you the confidence to shine in your own unique way of being, called dharma in Sanskrit. Because it's through your dharma that you are going to contribute to building new social systems and structures rooted in love, equality for all souls, and equity for the marginalized. And that's what being a Bridgewalker is all about. Are you ready? Let's begin. Good morning, Marcy.
Hello,
Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's afternoon.
It's afternoon. By the time we start talking, it's afternoon. Okay, good afternoon. What's happening in your neck of the woods?
It's gorgeous up here in Maine today. I mean, it is one of those days. Have you got that same in Manchester?
It's not the best days, but it's beautiful nevertheless. Like it's still a little gray, still a little gloomy, but just the fall weather. It's a little crisp air, but good enough sun today. It's not bright. I love the days when it's like chilly air and bright sun.
It's the most perfect weather. It's the one season everyone agrees on, but the sky out there today, the level of blue, like it's been up leveled, right?
Oh my goodness. You know, that reminds me when my mom and dad were visiting me one time, we used to sit out in the garden and we would just look at the sky, right? And one time my mom commented, she's like, you know what I'm observing? She said, there's something about the sky in New England that it's like, there is a word in Marathi, it's called nitar, meaning nitar.
Uh-huh.
It means, I don't know how to translate it, but it's like there is no equivalent of it in English, but it's like it has the connotation of deep color. So in this case, blue, without impurities, but also without any covering. So like you can see your reflection almost in it, that type of quality to it. And purity. So all of these connotations to it. And she used that word for it. And I thought that was so beautiful, such a beautiful way of describing the New England sky.
Yeah.
Because then once she pointed it out, I started observing, and I went to Ohio, I went to Florida one time, I was in California, and it wasn't the same sky. It wasn't. Every sky has its own beauty. Like, for example, where I grew up in Kakade, the beauty was in the storm, the gray was so deep in the monsoon. It was like a dark slate charcoal gray, and the sky looked gorgeous during storm, and it was because of the clouds that are in there. But this New England sky has some different property to it where it just looks so gorgeous.
I love the skies here, and also in high New Mexico, northern New Mexico.
Yeah,
the skies there are they're similar to New England, but even a notch more.
Oh, wow!
I don't know if it does snow up in those mountains there, so I'm not sure if it's similar in terms of longitude and latitude or something. You know, it's fitting in there or something. The sky's similar, but anyway, incredible skies. But when you're looking out over the desert. Because in New England, we're trees. We're trying to look up, right?
Right.
But in the desert, you can look across and see this.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's so beautiful. I
it's
remember
gorgeous.
that feeling when we visited Iceland, that there was this
Same
landscape
thing.
that was just
Yeah,
straight, and you
yeah,
could see that beautiful blue sky just straight for
yeah,
literally miles. But
yeah,
yeah, it was gorgeous.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, you've got
So
one of those.
every
One of
part
those.
has its own beauty,
Yeah,
and I love New England in the autumn time.
it's the
Just
best.
yeah. And our maple tree has started changing the color. That tree almost doesn't change color at all.
Really?
Yeah, it gets into like yellowish, and then next day orange, and then the leaves fall down. But from green to yellow, it takes forever. Like it happens at the like end of October.
Uh-huh.
So basically now it has started showing signs of like slight yellow tinges here and there. So I'm like, oh, the maple tree is getting ready to like
They do
shed the
vary quite
leaves.
a bit year to year. They can, depending on rainfall. Is that the one that your owl is housed in?
Yes, the owl house is in there.
Yeah.
I think the owl is now gone since last maybe 2-3 days. The owl is gone now. I haven't seen it in 2-3 days, but
Yeah.
it comes back every 2-3 months, I think.
Yeah.
And stays for a couple of weeks and then
Yeah.
goes away again. It's so funny. We have this blue jay in the yard. Did I tell you about the blue jay?
No.
Last time? No. Okay. That blue jay. And for this, like, podcast isn't the best medium for this. People need the video for this because I'm going to enact some stuff in here.
Uh-huh.
But that blue jay, Marcy, I kid you not, the owl sits in that, I don't know the word for it, but in that, like,
It's the hollow of the tree.
it's the hollow of the tree. Yeah, the owl sits in there. And this blue jay literally looks straight at the owl, sits on the branch next to it, and continues annoying the heck out of that owl. It's like constantly. At one point I was telling Rishi, it's like this blue jay does not want the owl to be there. So one time owl got so irritated, or I'm giving it these feelings, I don't know what exactly happened, right? But the owl just is like this wise soul who is just looking at this blue jay, is like, Lord. And then the owl just leaves, and 20 minutes later the owl comes back, blue jay is gone by then, and the owl is back to normal. Like it's regular. But this blue jay,
the blue jays are so annoying. I mean, they're gorgeous, but I watch them, and we have hazelnuts here and blueberry bushes here, and we have quite a bit actually, including dogwood berries, and I've got these amazing racemosa bushes that have these incredible like garnet plumes of berries. I mean, they're just incredible. So the animals go crazy here. I mean, I try to like, oh, I'm going to harvest the hazelnuts, or I'm going to harvest the blueberries. Get off my blueberries. It's so hard to do. And they will also, all things that are, animal will, if they want to get in there, they'll figure out a way. So you can net them, you can do all kinds of things, thinking you're outsmarting Mother Nature. No. There's no way.
You cannot.
So I watch these blue jays descend upon my blueberries every year, and they're messy about what they do, argumentative with one another.
Argumentative is the right word. They're so loud.
They're so loud, and they just, kind of with their beak, like will run their beak along the blueberry stem and then send blueberries flying everywhere.
Oh my goodness. I haven't seen that kind of spectacle.
It's a spectacle. I should get it on video next year. Yeah. But I'm always like, you get out of there.
Yeah, so the blue jay, annoying blue jay, but I love the colors. I love watching the entertainment that he gives us. It's like, I am dancing for you. I'm being loud for you. Just watch me. And owl, why are you here? So other than the gorgeous weather, what do you want to talk about? Just before we got on the call, you are telling me that the energy healer, you're always skeptical. When somebody says they're an energy healer, energy worker, you're always skeptical. Explain more about that. So that will give us a jump off point for our listeners to understand the context.
So I think for me, and again, I want to say to our listeners, I'm wrestling with this too, how we present ourselves, how we express the information, the knowledge that we do have to one another, and of course, part of this is just practical, what do I write on my webpage, or what do I, that kind of
right.
part of it is, how do I have had so much experience in this field. How do I express it to people? And to me, the experience-based stuff is the best. It's the easiest for me to express the stuff that I truly embody from doing it for so long. But it does come with a skepticism, because I think that we take, by we, I mean the general populace that's interested in these sorts of, I don't even look at it as though it's alternative anymore, Manasi, but they're ancient ways of thinking, right? And then we quickly take a course, and then let's say it's about shamanism, and then we call ourselves a shaman.
Right. So basically you're talking about the superficiality of it.
I think so, but not everyone is superficial about
not
this.
Everyone is superficial.
Shamans. I've studied shamanism. I began to study shamanism when I was about 19, actually, from an archaeological standpoint, in the beginning.
Interesting.
And so that's real. It's not that is just woo-hoo and fake.
No, it's not. No.
But we do this with a rapidity that I think I need to remain skeptical about it.
Right. And that what you're bringing up is basically spiritual bypassing.
Yes.
Cultural appropriation and whitewashing.
Yes. Oh, the cultural appropriation just makes me insane.
Right?
Even when I am a white Jewish woman.
Right. But that's the thing. Like what is making you skeptical are experiences with spiritual bypassing, cultural appropriation, and whitewashing, which then ultimately makes you think, for somebody like you, and I know you very closely in this context, is you have gone to the depths of Ayurveda, and you intuitively, and then through your study, investigation, the 1-3 profile, your experimentation, you have understood energy to the level where you just know it. You are deep in trenches with this wisdom and applying it to your life for decades, right? And now, just now, you are even thinking about, like, how do I share this? How do I even tell people I know this without making sure, without culturally appropriating it in any way? You are always aware of those things, spiritually bypassing, pronouncing the right words. You're aware of all these things, like trying, yes, trying. But at least you know that there are words that you aren't saying right. And you always tell me that, Manasi, please correct me, or something like that. And we have that kind of relationship where I am friends with you. You are not asking me to do emotional labor. So let me
no.
Yeah, let me just make it very clear that I won't do emotional labor for others.
Yes.
Although when it comes to Indian pronunciation, somebody's going to have to do the emotional labor, because
got to do it.
Somebody's going to have to do it. But
it's a heavy lift in this country.
Right. And on that note, I have a series on TikTok where I teach you how to pronounce Indian words. And so far we have done karma, chakra, and something else, I think. We have done like
wonderful.
3-4 videos.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So the words that I commonly use, at least, those are the words I'm teaching you how to say it. And I'm inviting everybody to say it that way, encouraging. And at one point I would probably just demand it. But for now, I am encouraging and inviting, because those who do it. But the point I'm saying is, I know you to know that you are deeply entrenched in the wisdom. You embody that wisdom.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the distinction, that when we are in this culture, especially in the US, that I have lived only in 2 countries, India and US. So I cannot speak about other countries, and you decide for yourself what it is. But in the US, there is this tendency that I can teach something with very minimal knowledge, and it's okay for me to be a teacher like that. And all I need is some kind of certification. Mm-hmm. So people go to, like, I don't know, some certification of yoga, where they don't even teach you how to pronounce yoga because it's not legit, right? And then you go and you think you are a candidate to be a teacher of this wisdom. And that is what is detrimental, not just to the wisdom, to the culture, but to everybody who is learning from you.
Well,
and to you as a teacher.
And I will say something exactly, because I want, with respect to everyone who has gotten a yoga certification,
yoga
certification in this country, you can very innocently take the class, go fairly deep yourself, and then start to do it and think you're covering that topic.
Yeah.
Innocently.
Yeah. With all good intentions.
It's all good intention.
All good intentions.
One thing I will say, and for all of our listeners, if it doesn't feel good to you, don't pay attention to that teacher.
Exactly. So
we have done when someone doesn't have good intentions. I think that we can all agree. We can notice that.
But even in that, Marcy, it's hard to find who is a good teacher. Which is why I have done like a whole podcast episode on what makes a good teacher. How should you select your teacher? So go listen to that podcast, people.
I will.
And especially for spiritual teachers. So there, I didn't just talk about teachers as in somebody who is teaching you, let's say, engineering. I was talking about also life skills, right? Like somebody who's teaching you spirituality. How do you select those teachers?
Yeah.
And those concepts apply to all teachers. But the difference between this is that, so for example, in TikTok, when I was conducting this 21 days of decolonizing 7 chakra series, I got questions that I was thinking, like, why are you asking me this? Like, this is not even, like, why would you get an idea that what you're asking is even relevant to chakra, right? It was those kind of questions. And when I asked them, like, how did you get this idea? They told me somebody else taught them that.
Of course.
This is the harm superficial teachers are doing, because they're not going deep enough to actually understand the concept. And they are looking at a different culture's wisdom from their own cultural lens. Right. So for example, you can look at 7 chakra, and if you look at it from the rugged individualism perspective, you would never understand the community part of the 7 chakra. Right? Because you just don't think that way. But the culture where it originated has a deep aspect of community building that is entrenched into the energies that run within us. Human beings are social animals. But because the community-oriented culture understood it, they interpreted those energies in that particular lens, through that particular lens, in that particular way. So you look at it from this wounded idea, or like Christian people looking at 7 chakra as just like some mystical thing or some like exotic thing. And I see that they hold the same ideas. Like I just did a TikTok video on one of my friends, how this one person came to her, didn't even talk to her, say hi or anything, and just gave her this brochure asking her, are you a Christian? Maybe it's time to convert to Christianity, right? That idea, if you come from that type of religion and suddenly now you have find quote unquote something new age, which is basically whitewashed, culturally appropriated, and spiritual bypassing knowledge from ancient cultures of indigenous peoples from around the world.
Yes.
Right? That's what they are calling new age. There is nothing new age about it. But if you come from Christianity and now you're looking at that new age stuff, that's when you are like, no, this is how chakra should be taught. This is what chakra is. And you forget the basic idea that everybody is going to experience chakra differently.
Absolutely.
That's when you get into these ideas that, no, this should be experienced as like clockwise or counterclockwise motion, right?
Well, I think
you are portraying these ideas on others based on your particular lens and in the culture that you are grown up in. Unless you dismantle those ideas, you cannot look at other culture and their wisdom. And most likely there may be a point where you may never understand it to the depth that the person who is grown in that culture. But somebody like you who literally comes as close as it can be for a person who is non-Indian to embody this knowledge, that's the depth. That's the depth. And the reason you're skeptical is because most, like 99% of what people are teaching is superficial. It's not in depth, and it does not do service, and it actually does more harm than help.
Yeah.
That's why it's very, I am skeptical too. If anybody tells me I'm an energy healer, I'm like, I'm skeptical. What exactly are you healing? Like,
and yet I'm so grateful that people are interested in this body of knowledge, wisdom, I might say, may not be knowledge, right? Wisdom in any way. I think it's very good, but I just wish people, well, first of all, I want to take one step back. So you said it very well. Manasi, as I understand it, your culture, which I boldly look at all the time and read about and everything too, because it is such amazing ancient wisdom. You know, your culture has a very different orientation, you know, as a country than the United States. Right. So I think one thing that we can talk about is that in the United States, we have a very individual approach, right? You have a much more communal, hive, what I would call, approach, to community and so on. And so when you take something, when you appropriate from a culture, you know, some ancient wisdom, and then filter it through America, right, and how we present information here, we lose, you know, right? We lose information, huge amounts of intrinsic information that has to do with your country's ancient wisdom culture.
Right. And interestingly, this is where we get into these ideas that, oh, use 7 chakra in order to build a business. And I'm not saying no, I teach that, right? But I'm not saying only commercialize 7 chakra to build a business or to get a relationship or to do something like heal your own childhood trauma. All of these would be parts of it. But ultimately, you are learning this so that you can be a better contributor to your community. And this whole lens is just gone, which is why I named my Patreon Inner Peace for Outer Peace.
Yes, I saw that.
Right? Because when we see something, and people hear this in spirituality all the time, we are all one, people in individualist cultures have a very hard time understanding that concept. They don't understand, why are we all one? How are we all one? Or if we say that there cannot exist outer peace without inner peace, they don't understand it. But the reason I'm teaching about 7 chakra, the reason I want you to heal, the reason I want you to build best businesses, the reason I want you to experience your joy, the reason I want you to have the most rewarding, deserving relationships is because ultimately we want outer peace.
Right.
Not just because you should have this amazing life and you shouldn't care about somebody else.
No, it's the only real way to achieve.
It is only real way. And then imagine that community, when that supports you, how amazing you would feel in being supported by that community. But individual oriented cultures, they don't understand that. They don't understand the value of building community so that community builds us back again.
That's right.
They just don't get it. So this lens, and that's why I hate it when people teach about 7 chakras and talk about 7 chakra just to build a business. It dilutes that wisdom and the importance of what we are actually doing to such a minuscule level. Whereas ancient Indian wisdom is talking about like lifetimes. And we are talking about, I don't know, the ages 20 to 60, 70, when we are going to be probably productive in the sense of career. And that age can differ, right? People can start businesses
earlier or later.
Much later, right? That time can, but what I'm saying is grihasthashram, meaning the time when you are actually looking at your worldly responsibilities and enjoying materialistic pleasure. All of that time, it's like that's the only time we are focusing on when we are talking about 7 chakra, versus the actual wisdom is talking about lifetimes.
Right.
So the lens is so different.
So the more I study India's ancient wisdom, and it's different in different parts of your country too, right? But I don't think people always realize that.
Because the whole concept is, it is everybody's unique way of being. So somebody is interpreting.
And so that is such a big conversation right there, Manasi, because people do not understand that about this wisdom.
Yes.
You know, and that it has to do with that India's culture, it's better if you say it, right? But it's true. My understanding, my feeling, as I've learned it and I've experienced it, is your country's culture has to do with each individual being able to excel within the larger community, right?
Yes.
And that the life sciences which are all these ancient traditions, are about just that. And honestly, that it doesn't matter. And maybe you can translate this word for me. I should have done it, or maybe someone has told me over the years. But Vidyas, Vaidya, any of the Vidyas. I just have to say every V, as a W, right?
Every V usually is W.
V is W.
Yeah.
Vaidya, right?
We actually have fun fact about language. What we pronounce is usually between W and V. There's a different, completely different, but it's closer to W.
I know. That's why I get nervous about saying it in front of you.
No, don't be nervous.
At least my ears are sensitive enough these days to understand. Oh, that's not quite a W, right? But it really doesn't. You can take any of these ancient wisdom traditions, be it Ayurveda, Vastu, right? I don't know, chakra, whatever whatever they all are, right? Some of these are medical, by the way, for your listeners. Some of these have to do with, specific to home sciences. Some have to, but it's all about how you live and what your relationship is with nature. I would say in general, they're all about the same thing.
Energy.
Yeah, they're all about energy.
All about energy.
Your relationship with energy.
Right. So and that's how deep it is, where you understand that energy is really the underlying principle of everything. So let's experience how it shows up in Vastu Shastra, meaning literally the science of home.
Right.
Ayurveda, which means the body of knowledge related to life.
Yep.
And life meaning longevity. In this case, it means longevity. But it also can be translated as life.
Yeah.
And chakra is all about, like, literally in your body, what are you experiencing?
Yes.
Right. So it is so beautiful that underlying part is the energy, but there are so many different ways of experiencing it. Right? Yeah. And so it's interesting that I'm so glad you brought this up, because yes, that's the underlying part, but people don't even get it.
Well, then we don't have it in this country.
And then the people, in this country, and even in India, by the way, in India too, it's not very easy to get this, because that's why. So that brings us back to our original point where we were talking about superficiality, right? So one of the things, the two experiences that I had that kind of opened my eyes to something when I was doing the series on 21 days of decolonizing 7 chakra on TikTok. By the way, listeners, if you haven't watched that series, please go do it. The webinar is still available to download. The recording is available for download. So request the webinar. All of that, I will include the links below. But so when I was doing this, two things happened. Number one, there were a handful of people, they came to me and they were so excited to learn from me, because they're like, Manasi, I wanted to teach this for a long time, but I didn't have the right resource to learn it from. And I'm glad I found you. This is a great intention, right? But we have to understand this knowledge takes so much to internalize. And in the world of, in India, there is a concept of sadhana. I've done a YouTube video on it. I will include the link below. But sadhana basically means showing up day in, day out to do the same thing, so that you continue moving towards internalizing what you're learning. So yes, you can learn a song quickly, but sadhana is what will make that song internalize in you. So you can change the musical notes as you want to showcase certain emotions. You can bring emotions into it. Then you may end up choosing different lyrics for it. You can do all of these things, but it takes sadhana, meaning showing up day in, day out to internalize the knowledge. Now, let me finish this thought, Mars. So you, with the open throat, we are like both wanting to talk, right? I can see that you want to add something, right? But before I forget, so the sadhana is required. So here in the US, again, goes back to like, I can take a 9-month certification of yoga, and I can teach yoga, and it will be perfectly fine. Yes, you may be able to make money, because our current world, the way it is structured, people have no idea what is the good knowledge, what is the harmful knowledge. So yes, you may be able to teach something, but there is a difference between superficially learning something. So there is a difference between information. What I'm giving you comes at the point of information. Then it turns into knowledge. So people in BVI, somebody who works with me on a very deep level, they start turning their information into knowledge, meaning for themselves, they start understanding, oh, this is how it works. The third step then is wisdom. So now you understand, oh, this is how it works for me, but this is not how it works for another person. So then now you understand the principle, not just the rule of something. So most people are just at that information level. They haven't gone from information to knowledge, knowledge to wisdom. And the last step is internalizing wisdom.
Yes.
It's not just that you are not just enlightened about something, you are embodying something. And when it comes to Ayurveda, Marcy, you are at wisdom and embodiment level, right? Like you have learned enough information, more than enough knowledge. You apply this to yourself, to others. You have come to the wisdom stage. You continue your wisdom seeking, which always happens. And you have internalized quite a bit of it, right? So with me, when it comes to 7 chakra, that's the case. When it comes to Vastu Shastra, I am just at information level. When it comes to Ayurveda, I'm at knowledge level. I'm not as deep as you are in it. So I cannot teach Ayurveda. I cannot even claim I should be teaching it. So that was one side of it, where people were so excited to teach others, share this information. I love the excitement that you have in my culture. I love your eagerness and interest in it. But you have to understand that if you just share information, it will do more harm than good.
I agree.
Which is what has been happening with cultural appropriation, spiritual bypassing, because they don't understand that once you internalize something, you will automatically understand that what I was teaching was just very superficial. It doesn't even apply to the wisdom of 7 chakra, because then I'm teaching it from this lens of XYZ, wounded patriarchy, lens of white supremacy, lens of racism, lens of sexism, casteism. Right?
Yes.
So that was one aspect that I understood, is in order to be teacher, people have to understand, they have to go from information to knowledge to wisdom to internalization. So from enlightenment to embodiment. And without embodying, you cannot be a good teacher. You cannot be, and in India, that concept is such a given, like the sadhana has to be put in order to go from information to internalization, then the teacher would appear. But the teacher within you would appear outside, right? But here, it's like people are so quick to make money. People are so quick to share what they're excited about. They almost feel shame in saying, I am just a student at this point. Well, see, it's okay for you to be student.
Not only that, I take pride in saying that.
Exactly.
I am doing sadhana. That I am doing, and I can say that accurately.
You certainly are.
Day. That is my life, and I value that. And if I can turn anybody else onto that, I'm happy to do it and say it to them. Now, I'll say something else about this, because this is just interesting. Let's step back from this for a moment. So I'm not keeping bees at the moment because I injured my back. So I may find another way to keep bees, but I have kept bees for like 16 years in total, I think. And so I just want to say that is a very interesting hobby, or, some it's vocation for some people, but hobby, learning how to do that, because, and our listeners will understand, because clearly all this, by the way, is dealing with nature. Everything that we are discussing right now, any of these life sciences of any sort, any of these approach, whether it's chakras or, whichever it is, Ayurveda, whatever it is, it's all, but we really can see that if you're sticking your hand in a beehive, you get that is about an insect that has to do with nature. Beekeeping suffers from the same problem, Manasi, that anyone who has kept a beehive then now feels they manage to get the bees to survive off the one season and get some honey. They believe that they can, therefore, teach beekeeping. In reality, I cannot tell you, in case any of our listeners are thinking about becoming beekeepers, I applaud you. I want to you could call me, whatever. It is not that simple, because you are dealing with nature. So what you see one season in a hive is not at all, it may not at all relate to what happens in that hive, next month or something. So I found eventually, because I would teach beekeeping sometimes, I don't think there's anything wrong, at least in the case of beekeeping, of saying, these are the these are the bee facts, right? But this, because it's nature, just like climate or growing anything, 1 year tomatoes do great, and the next year tomatoes get a blight and do terribly. There's a reason for that.
Right.
And the intensity of beekeeping is understanding the bee and how she relates to all the bees.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that as an entity in and of itself, and really, because the bees are energetic, as an energetic entity, you see different things in there all the time.
Right.
And the honeybee has been around for, like a million years, a couple, I don't know, they say, actually, some people say 100 million years or something crazy like that. Yeah. So I don't know if they know that accurately or not. But in any case, the honeybee's been, so it has systems and subsystems and alternate systems. And, it's an incredible thing to learn how to do. But it is not like you go out, you buy a beehive, you put the bees in, you get honey, and it's fun and wonderful. And they pollinate. Somebody talks about pollination, and then you're done.
Right.
It's a very complex thing. After 16 years of doing it, I could finally go in and read a hive, and I could talk about it as it is. And then I almost found it was too complex to teach. For me, you just have to get in there and do the practice, do the sadhana with those bees.
Exactly.
Some will die, whatever happens, but you'll learn.
Right. And that really is the crux of the issue in anything that is being taught related to many things. Like people in business, they make 6-figure income one time. Yes. 1 year. And then they start claiming that I have 6-figure business. First of all, I don't even know what that means. Like, are they talking profit? Are they talking revenue? How much time over the period of the business? Or is it just in 1 year? Like, so financially too, what they're saying doesn't even make sense. These are just made up terms to give you credibility. But then they start teaching, like, I will teach you how to do this. And you're like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's so superficial. Yeah. It's like, if you give me track record of you have done it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I may be more willing to come to you and listen to that and maybe understand it. But even then, honestly, just because it worked for you doesn't mean it will work for me. So I still cannot pay attention to these things, right? Like my husband says that, so my Rishi, my hubby, he has major issue with coaching and healing industry. And he's the one who keeps me on my toes to not to convert it into MLM, right? Basically. Right. But basically, he says like coaching industry has become like a pyramid scheme because one coach sells to another coach and that's it. Who is buying from you? Just the coaches, right? So I have to look back and I have to, again, ask myself all the time, if only other coaches are buying from me, and there is some part of it where coaches are probably more inclined to self-growth, and that's why they want to create their own business. So there's some aspect of it that sometimes Rishi doesn't get, or at least he thinks like, yes, that aspect is there, but you still have to understand this is an unregulated industry. Right. Yep. So he's thinking of it from a very practical perspective, but he says that I want to know how you are making money. So for example, if you are telling people how to trade on stocks, let's say how to trade stocks, if you're telling people that, and most of your money is coming from teaching how to trade rather than actual trading, then that's a red flag for me. Yes. Because why isn't your money coming from trading? You should be teaching, and that would be part of your revenue. But the bigger part of your revenue should come from trading. Right? Yeah. So if I am teaching people spirituality, how am I doing individually, spiritually? That's an important factor. Like if I am feeling very constantly angry to you, and not that anger is bad, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is if you sense a sense of imbalance in me all the time, it's not like I'm going to be balanced all the time. But if you sense this sense of imbalance constantly in me all the time, clearly I'm not even applying my own spirituality, what I'm teaching you, to myself. We got to question that. Yes. So the teacher who are usually superficial, if you dig down enough, you can detect an imbalance. Right? And that's why we need to get better at detecting imbalances in people to then understand whether their expression is coming out of wounds or it is coming out of healing. Right? And that's when we would be able to understand who is on the right track. Like you, Marcy, I can look at you and see most often you are in a balanced state, not just of your bodily health, but also your mental health, your emotional health, right? Your soul's health, despite experiencing a lot of trauma in life.
Yes.
Right? So we got to pay attention to these things. And some of the teachers that I see, like, for example, there's this big name teacher, I'm not going to take his name. He was invited to speak at HubSpot's conference. They have this inbound conference, which is once a year. And in that conference, they invited him to speak. Marcy, he just put up a PowerPoint, kept on looking at the PowerPoint, explaining the concept of spirituality, Marcy. Explain the concepts of mindfulness.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you aren't even mindful enough to pay attention to the audience, to actually understand what it is that they want to hear from you. Not that PowerPoint that you have just prepared. And part of it was like, people are telling me that, oh, it could just be his communication skills. No, he is a great communicator if he wants to be. Right? So part of me is saying that you're just doing this for fame, either that or you haven't internalized the wisdom that you're teaching.
If we take it from the, with its most well-meaning, and people do need to earn money. I support them in earning money. I want them to earn money.
He has more than enough money, right? Marcy. At least.
But I'm saying, whatever he's continuing that for.
Yeah.
I think it's important. But I mean, if they, if you haven't gotten into the information enough to understand what it is to embody that information, all it's going to do is create a disconnect. Now, people are going to pay you for that information because if you're already wealthy and so on and so forth, and they perceive your, there is this sort of energy that happens for men, when people think they're following a good teacher, even if they're not following a good teacher. I mean, we are sheep a little bit, right? We do want to follow someone, and we fall in line. And if your friend says, oh, this is amazing, I went to the talk, then you go too, etc. But that does not mean that that person is sharing you embodied information.
Exactly. And compare that to Dr. Svoboda.
Yeah.
I mean, he has embodied the wisdom.
Yes.
And there is another person that I came across when I was learning about seven chakra. He is a white person turned a monk who lives in India. And this guy, oh my goodness, he was the first person who confirmed what I had channeled, which was chakra is not a point on the body.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That right there, it's like, oh, what, and understand, I have been through Ayurveda training, right? And there's a whole discussion. And by the way, there is a correlation between sort of ganglion points. Medically, you can kind of go, oh, they fall sort of in this area, right? And that's fact. That's true. But it is, oh my gosh, Dr. Svoboda's information about chakra is so interesting, Manasi, because he'll talk about them. Not only that, there's multiple levels, so it's like, right?
I haven't heard him that much.
Very interesting. It's very interesting information.
But I can tell, I haven't heard him that much, but I can tell he has embodied the wisdom.
Yeah.
And what he's teaching is his own wisdom, his own interpretation. And that's what it needs to happen, that when you embody the wisdom, so you go from information to knowledge to wisdom, then that's the path to enlightenment. But then after enlightenment, you have to embody.
Yes.
And that embody includes when you apply it in your life and you start understanding, this is how it is. And then you apply to somebody else and you say, it didn't work for you. Why? Right? So all of that includes embodiment. And that's when your actual wisdom, your dharma, meaning your unique way of being to express that particular body of knowledge comes out. Right? And that's what the embodied teachers are, completely different ballgame. And they are so rare that if you find one, don't leave them.
Yeah.
Unless they grow out of your vibration. That can happen. But if you find them, stick with them.
Yeah, I think that's true. So one thing we're saying is identify a good teacher by seeing if they're truly, and I think we can judge this fairly well, embodying the information as opposed to doing a PowerPoint presentation is the example.
Right. And not just PowerPoint presentation, Marcy. The fact that so my mother was asking me when I was giving this webinar, my mom was saying, oh, are you prepared for the webinar? I said, Mom, if somebody wakes me up in the middle of the night and tells me that what is this, I would be able to answer them.
Yes,
that's
true.
how much this information is within me.
Mm-hmm.
I would instantly be able to give this at any day, any moment, because it is internalized in me. It is internalized. I will know exactly what questions to ask them to understand if they're asking the question for this reason or that reason, to get to their balance, to get to their imbalance. I can coach somebody in the middle of the night when I'm asleep and you just wake me up and you start asking me questions. I would coach you.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my mom that. So compare that to the PowerPoint presentation. Why do you even need a PowerPoint? I mean, I understand using it as a visual aid, but why do you have to look at it to explain the concept to others if you're calling yourself spiritual mentor?
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't understand it.
Well,
but anyway. Yeah. I want to also address a second point that I observed in this series. Are you up for it?
Sure.
Okay. So the first fact I observed is all these people who are generally speaking non-Indians who want to share this knowledge and they're excited about it, which I appreciate their excitement, but I wanted to clarify this part to go from information to knowledge to wisdom to embodiment of the wisdom. Then you can become a teacher. Then the second trend I observed was people asking me, and this was from the names, at least, it seemed like people from Indian subcontinent, at least in the origin, as well as non-Indians, asking me, can I do a series on yoga, decolonizing yoga? Somebody else asked me about, can I do a series on, I think, eating? So Ayurveda, basically, can I do a series on Ayurveda? And that's when it hit me. People don't understand the amount of time required to gain the mastery of a topic.
Oh my gosh, it's
people
decades.
Don't get it. Because if you think somebody who has mastery of chakra can also teach you about yoga with the equal mastery, can also teach you about Ayurveda, people spend lifetimes, if we believe in all lifetimes, but if not that, at least just one lifetime, mastering one of these things. One, not all, one. Right? So whatever calls you, if Vastu Shastra calls you and that's how you're understanding energy, yes, hopefully you give all your life to understanding that and master it so that you ultimately get to understanding energy. I just was attracted directly to energy, which is why I talk about chakra. But talking about yoga, I have no expertise in yoga. And when I say no expertise, I'm at information level, I'm at knowledge level. To a certain extent, I'm also at the wisdom level. But yet, I would never call myself an expert in yoga or in Ayurveda.
Well, I think I just want to interject something here. I think people, partially it's American culture, but it happens elsewhere too, of course. Right. We just live in a culture today, currently, where things happen really quickly and we desire them to. And there's great appeal to that, by the way.
Right.
But I also don't think that it should be seen as a negative to say, I am doing this. And I'm going to teach you what I know now and the wisdom I currently embody. I don't embody all of it. Check in with me next month because I'm going to know more, Right. I think that's fine.
That is fine. And number two, it is fine for you not to know it.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
I literally said to the person that, no, I don't have enough expertise to make a series on decolonizing yoga. Yes. I don't have enough expertise to make a series on decolonizing Ayurveda. Yes. I just don't. Yeah. And I have no shame or I don't feel any less than because of that, because it is ingrained in me, again, the concept of sadhana. So you cannot expect me to go from enlightenment to embodiment on all subjects on the matter of the place of the earth, that, or the face of the earth, right? You cannot expect me. But the fact that people ask these questions made me think just how much we have forgotten, how much time and how much energy and how much sadhana it should take for somebody to gain a mastery of the topic and then to teach it to others.
Absolutely.
It is literally our journey and our sadhana of a lifetime. There could be some people who who sing and play an instrument all in one lifetime. And they are amazing because it comes to them naturally. They have put in that much sadhana. For me, or for most people, you take one craft and you continue understanding it from all different angles. So for you, you are, Marcy, understanding energy from the lens of Ayurveda, from the lens of Vastu Shastra, from the lens of chakra. You are attacking it from different angles. That doesn't mean you are master of Ayurveda or Vastu Shastra or chakra. You are master of energy. You understand energy. So depending on our lens, but our master is going to be of one or few things. It's not going to be like I'm master of everything. So it's not like I'm a master of ancient Indian wisdom. Even when I talk about ancient Indian wisdom, what I teach is chakra, karma, and dharma. These are my three main concepts. And then, yes, I do have information about Grihasthashram and how lives should go. I do apply it to business, and I do understand business. That's part of my mastery, to understand energy of business. But I cannot be a master. Neither should you try to be. I think try to be meaning, yes, if you have the desire and that becomes part of your unique expression, by all means, go do it. Right? There are no limitations. But in my lifetime, at least for now, when I'm 41 years old, I only have mastered chakra. That's about it. And even then, can I call myself a master? No, I'm continuously still learning. So even this term of mastery doesn't fit well with the Indian in me. That at what time do you call yourself a master? Right? It doesn't fit well with me. So even thinking about it from the perspective of mastery versus continuous sadhana, and I'm teaching you what I have embodied until now, right? So you are always in this learning phase, and then you are in the teaching phase when you feel you have embodied it. That's a better way of looking at it.
Yes.
Than thinking that I am a master or I have reached a mastery, because it feels like a destination. And again, the whole concept of destination versus process and journey, again, cultural difference right here. Because if you continue going for a destination, like when am I going to earn this much money in business? When am I going to be able to teach this to others? You are only chasing the destination. And in the process, you are sacrificing sadhana.
Yes.
Important. You're not recognizing sadhana.
That's right? It. I mean, the good teacher is always a good student.
Exactly. So I learned from Dr. Swoboda because I want to learn other person's perspective who have internalized spirituality and who is willing to have discussions, right? So I want to learn from that type of person, and I do learn from him. And he may have I don't know his take on chakra because I haven't studied those lectures. But
it's very interesting.
But he may come at it from a different perspective, and I'm completely happy and okay with it, because that's what makes this knowledge richer. So when people ask me what is the difference between cultural appropriation and cultural exchange, this is the difference. Cultural exchange is this embodiment of understanding that culture so deeply that you actually develop a lens of that culture to internalize the knowledge.
So
cultural appropriation is just you taking things and thinking that you can share it anytime you want without any embodiment, without any internalization.
Right? Very interesting conversation, Manasi, and really very helpful.
Isn't it?
Consider, I would say in general for people, when you run into people and you're considering taking a class or you're listening to a lecture or, whatever the exchange may be, consider the context where that teacher learned their information.
Definitely. Yeah. And sometimes it takes forever to find it. So don't be afraid to course correct.
Right.
Like at the moment you recognize something and you realize, oh, this is imbalance and I didn't think of it that way before. Or moment you recognize that, oh, this is coming from a very balanced state and I didn't know about this teacher before. Don't be afraid to change teachers. Don't be afraid to leave teachers, and don't be afraid to take on new teachers.
Perfect. I would add one other thing to that, which is the concept of sadhana, as I practice it, as I think you're expressing it. I think this is important. Everyone can do sadhana.
Oh, yes.
Right? So if a person is doing sadhana, their own sadhana all the time, they will more easily be able to understand what is right for them and also who embodies information or wisdom, I will say in this case.
Right.
As opposed to, and again, nothing really wrong with just reading from a book or, regurgitating information. I just wish that more people would also, if they're doing their sadhana, they will understand what they don't know and present the information that way.
Right.
There's no shame in that. It's
there
beautiful.
is no shame in that. Yeah. There, not only that there is no shame, in fact, that should be a requirement.
Yes, thank you.
For a teacher, it should be a requirement to say, no, I don't know this. I wouldn't share about this until I feel comfortable, or and that comfort point may never come in my lifetime.
Yeah,
and that's completely okay.
Yeah,
that's completely okay, because it's that humility in a teacher that actually shows internalization.
Yes.
Right. That shows internalization, because you actually, as you start learning more, what is that trope that as you learn more, you actually understand you don't know anything.
That's right.
Right. That's exactly what happens. As you start digging down this rabbit hole, you recognize, oh, I really have a lot to learn. And that's when your sadhana comes in, because then you take this one concept and you keep thinking about it. You keep meditating over it. You keep applying it. You keep making mistakes. You keep learning from it. And then suddenly you realize, I have seen it from so many different angles. I think I understand it.
Yes.
Right. Not just that I know the concept, I'm informed about the concept, but I actually understand it. I get it. It's like, for me, unity consciousness, I did not talk about unity consciousness for the longest time because I did not understand the concept. I have heard about it. I was informed about it. I was intellectually understanding it, but I hadn't understood it in my heart.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I didn't talk about it, because what would I say? What would I say that would be new information? Right. And information new as in, it doesn't have to be like brand new that nobody has ever said before, but new as in, what can I add to that conversation? That is my words, that is my experience, my examples, my way of saying it. Right. How can I add to that teaching if I have not internalized it?
And that is to say that all the knowledge that we're discussing here today, that we're referring to, you and I, it is not to be interpreted only one way.
It is not.
There is not a chakra system that is going to be used only one way.
Yeah.
This is very personal.
It is very personal, and not to mention the whole concept. Dharma, meaning your unique way of being. Everybody experiences energies differently. So that's why we need people who are talking about chakra, not as in just sound, as in hum, and just some flower that is sacred geometry and just some color.
Yeah.
Because that's what we have dialed it down to. Like, oh, this is not dialed it down, but watered it down to. We have watered it down to like these three things. It's a color, it's a sound, and it's a sacred geometry. That's not what chakra is. And point on the body. It's some ways of experiencing that energy, but when everybody understands this energy, they experience it in their own way, and they chime in with their opinions. As a collective, we will understand what energy is. We will understand what God is, because that energy is God. Right? So we want to understand God. Let's start internalizing this knowledge, see how we experience it, and then once we are internalized, embodied it, then add our 2 cents into the collective knowledge.
Yes, the collective knowledge.
The collective
That's
knowledge.
Really what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is, right? That's why we have dharma, meaning our unique way of being. And that's why organized religions don't work, because they are one way of being.
That's right.
Yeah. Woof.
Wow. Deep conversation. Good one.
Very deep. Good for us. Good for us. So people, multiple things. Number one, I'm going to include the link to sadhana, video on sadhana, because that concept, you really have to understand it at a very deep level to really show up for sadhana. And I will include a YouTube video I have done like 2-3 years ago about that.
And I want to say that information about sadhana is a pure gift. It will just start you on your journey. If you need a beginning, help you continue. If you're at the middle, wherever you are, sadhana is where it's at. That's what I find. I just keep showing up, right?
Right. Just showing up, right? That's where it is at. And that also is such a healing concept, because that's when we actually understand the importance of journey, importance of process, versus constantly chasing the outcome, which our society has like everything that we're talking about, superficiality, trying to earn money by teaching something quick or trying to create a certification of yoga. And I literally meant yoga. I did not mean yoga, but trying to create a certification of that, it comes from that wounding that results are more important than the journey.
That's right.
Right. So sadhana will literally liberate you in actually enjoying life. So that concept, just look into it. I will also include the link to the podcast episode on teacher, how to find a good teacher. Look it up, because there it's like a whole 1 hour conversation on just that topic. And then I will include the link to TikTok, 21 days of decolonizing 7 chakra, because if you want to learn from a teacher who has put in the sadhana to embody this knowledge, to internalize this knowledge, and then expressing it in my own way, then come to me, whether it's through that series on TikTok, or you request a webinar recording, I will include the link to that, or any of my programs, whether it's Patreon, which is the community and very equitable pricing option of learning from me, being in the community of other Bridgewalkers, or it is in the group of other solopreneurs, coaches, healers, hanging out with them through Bridgewalkers Playground, or it is one-on-one mentorship through Bridgewalker Visionaries Incubator. Whatever it is, whichever level you feel called to learn from me, I invite you to come and experience how it is to learn from a teacher who goes in depth versus just superficial. No shade on anybody else. But I hate making spirituality superficial.
Well,
superficial.
Yes, it's a pet peeve for me too, but I also find myself, and perhaps I'm far enough along myself, been doing it for long enough that I'm like going, well, you just take what you need and leave the rest. And, you don't have to go there if it's just superficial and it just, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's going through their own process. Right. But I know I do the same thing. I'm like, oh, I just heard that. No,
that's not right. Right. Exactly. Right. So superficiality feels very different than in-depth knowledge that is internal.
You will know it. That's important to point out. I mean, I really do feel like it's a sensation inside of you. You will know when you run into superficiality, if you run into it enough, in contrast to someone who's embodying information.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us on this episode of Bridgewalkers Tea. We will see you in the next episode.